leaders, agents, Keller Williams, anybody else this gets shared with. Happy holidays here. Yeah, I'm Matt Teter. This is Brian Martin. And today we're going to talk to you briefly about how you can focus on growth using 4 core tools. Brian, what else would you say before we get started with tool number 1?
I think the big thing is we're heading into a new year, right? We're heading into a market that's changed. We're heading into something different, right? What do you use as your 4 core tools to not only set goals, but to stay focused? You could lead others. You could lead an organization. This isn't just about, just big organizations. It could be how you lead yourself as an individual. It could be how you lead yourself. Maybe you're a husband, wife organization. Maybe you have a small group. Maybe you have a large group. Maybe you have 10 different businesses. Maybe you have whatever it is, right? The tools are actually all the same. That's the exciting part. Today, we're going to go into it. Not only what are they, but there is a specific order. Yeah. There's an order in which we go through these tools. Why is there an order? Well, there's an order because sometimes you'll hear what the tools are, right? Sometimes people hear the tools and they go, okay, each of these things lives in its own little bucket, right? And I visit it from time to time. That's not going to help you live a big life. That's not going to help you achieve a big goal. The way these work in alignment, I think by the time we're finished here today, you'll see that when we do these things in alignment, it not only helps us have clarity about our personal goals, but what do we need to do professionally? Who are we going to do that with? And then ultimately, how do we grow as the person who's going to lead the people that we're doing it with, which ultimately brings us back to our personal goals. Right?
Okay, cool. So let's just jump right in. Like there's 4 questions and 4 tools. So if you're writing these down, we're going to give you the 4 tools and 4 questions. Then we'll start with tool number 1. So here's the 4 questions you're going to write down. Really simple. You're going to write down why, what, who, and how. So 1, 2, 3, 4. Why, what, who, and how. Okay. So those are your 4 questions. Why, what, who, and how. And your 4 tools are 411. That's why. GPS, that's what. Organizational chart, I knew you got that one. Good job. That's who, right? And growth plan is how. So why, what, who, and how. 411, GPS, organizational chart, growth plan. And as Brian said, there's an order, and this is the order because Simon Sinek and Gary Keller and so many other powerful people have instructed us that we start with why are we doing the things we're doing. Now, in bold, we learn that it stands for a business objective life by design. So if you think about that, we should probably determine how we want to design our life. Why are we doing this? What do we desire to achieve in our lives before we design a business if the objective of our business is to live a life by design? That's a really long way of unpacking. You can't write a business plan before you write a life plan if you're going to design your life. And this is the reason why a 411, which is your personal goals, comes first. Yes, we are raising our voice here because it seems like it goes backwards so often, leaders, right? A 411, your personal life is first. You don't live to work, you work to live. Define your life and what you desire to have. We're going to talk about categorically how to think about your personal goals here in a moment, right? And help you with that, help you unpack that. Yet it's our life. And then we determine what do we need to fund that life. And that's where we then get into a GPS. So let's talk about categories.
And Matt, when we go into this, right? Another reason of why is because just raise your hand with me if you've ever met somebody that they set a big goal, they achieve their big goal, right? Oh, I'm going to sell X number of homes, or I'm going to make X number of dollars, or whatever it is, right? And then they stand there at the end of the year and they go, I hit my goal, but I didn't actually get what I wanted. Raise your hand if you've ever met a person like that or seen that or been that person. I've been that person, right? And then give yourself a high five. Good job, leader. I mean, you're on a recording if you just raise your hand, you're my favorite on the recording. Thank you. So here's the deal. for that to be true, it means we didn't actually do our job of figuring out what we wanted personally and how what we did professionally was going to fund that. And then what we did in the organization was going to make that work, right? And so we just figured out, oh, we're going to go set this professional goal and then go hit it. And then you hit it and you realize, oh, that didn't give me what I wanted. That didn't answer all the questions I had. That didn't move me forward in the personal way that I wanted, or it didn't serve the people that I cared about. Okay, that's why we got to start here first. So we're going to 411.
It's a personal tool, and it's a personal tool, Brian, right? The 411 is a personal tool, right? And this is where there's a little confusion here too, right? Some people will say things like, I'm using my personal GPS in my business 411. Leaders, right? Agents, people listening to this, the ecosystem of people that hear this recording. The 411 is a personal tool. Your GPS is a professional or business tool. Now, can you do whatever you want? Yes, right? It's your life. We're just living in it, right? Yet the ease of this is your 401 is a personal tool. Your GPS is a professional tool. So, right, to be able to make your 401 a personal tool and define your life, make it simple, have a starting point, start with why. Here's some categories, some goal categories, right? And again, they're not in any order. It's just categories, right? So do you have personal goals in your health? Do you have personal goals in investments you want to make? Do you have personal goals in debt that you want to pay off? Do you have personal goals in a certain amount of income that you desire to make? Do you have personal goals in places that you want to travel? Do you have personal goals in what you want to provide for your family? Do you have personal goals in a certain number of things that you want to do to establish a habit or continue a habit or continue a hobby or continue a sport, right? You want to play 50 rounds of golf. You want to ski 100 times in a year. You want to go on a date night every week with your significant other or spouse, right? You want to go on and play 100 times with your kids this year, or 200 times with your kids, right? You have a specific number of activities you want to continue or hobbies or things you want to begin, right? Brian, which ones did we miss? What other categories are personal goals?
I think you did a good job of explaining them. I think that the thing I would ask you, Matt, is like, so as somebody who's coached hundreds of leaders, like, a lot of people in the company, what do you see? Like, what do you think when you get a 411? Because I think this happens commonly, right? Yeah. The professional side, we have a bunch of stuff on there, and there's nothing on the personal side. What do you see? Like, what do you think when you see that?
Well, the first question I have is, do you burn money for heat? Right? Or do you use money as like a paperweight or like a doorstop in your house? Meaning you've done a really good job of defining how you're going to generate more income. How do you use money? If I give you more of a resource, what are you going to do? Right? And I think what happens is we get really good at operating our business very busy, right? And then we say, okay, what do you want to do in your life? And we go, well, I don't think about that very often. And then people just kind of go right back to being busy and work. The reason why we start with why, your business, your life, is Gary Keller himself teaches us that the first thing he does any year is he blocks out his personal travel, right, on his schedule and the time he's going to spend with his family before he ever puts business on his schedule. And then what happens is we work with a lot of leaders, like you said, or a lot of agents, and instead of starting with the 401, they start with the business side of their planning, and they start putting their business in their schedule, and then they wonder why their personal relationships with their significant other or their kids, right, or their friends, right, or their hobbies or the sports or the personal health, right, is not where they want it to be. Well, because they didn't prioritize themselves, their family, their lives, why they're doing the things they're doing, why they're making money, like Gary says to do, right? They end up on the opposite side where business actually, the task expands to the time allotted. And Brian, what they're doing is they're allotting all of the time for business and no time for their lives. So the majority of the time in a 401, what we see is very well executed or at least thought out business side and no personal side. And here's the interesting thing. The opposite order is important because what you said earlier, if you quantify what you desire to have personally, you add up everything, right? You turn it into a number, okay? If you can, that is what you need to fund in your business, right? Now, here's the other thing I'll say about a 401. Once someone defines what they want to do in travel with their family, in debt pay down, in investment, in income, right? In what they want to provide for people, the charitable donations. Oh, we did miss that one. Charitable donations, right? The charity that they want to give away, right? once they define that in their lives, they add that all up and they come up with a number. They've got to figure out a way to fund that professionally through businesses, through investments. When people begin, Brian, right, in their career, they typically have one income stream, right? I did, right? I had one income stream, maybe you probably the same. One income stream at a time, most people, right? And they have all these different goals in their personal life. And it actually, in some ways, is simple. And this is where I think people get in trouble when they mix tools. They go like, well, I've got personal goals and I've only got one income stream. So isn't the professional side of my 401 just my GPS? And the answer is basically yes. When you have one income stream, then you have a GPS for that one business. The professional side of your 401 or GPS look very similar, not the same.
Yeah, similar.
Similar. Brian, what you and I see, and here you asked me a question on mistakes, so I'll bring up the other big kind of mistake is we coach a lot of people and a lot of people on this call that have more than one income stream.
Yeah.
And that's why a 401 becomes so important, because you have all these areas of your personal life that you want to fund, right? And then you have multiple income streams. And the execution or big rocks of each income stream go on the professional side to add up to the amount of money necessary to fund your life by design. Then the GPS is only for one business at a time, making the two tools very different tools, right? And so what happens is I think a lot of people go, well, I don't need to have a 401 and a GPS because my 401 is just the same as my GPS when I have one income stream. The second you have two, you're going to realize, oh, wait a second. I got to define my personal life and what I want and how I'm going to get that through my income streams. Then each one of my businesses has a one-page business plan based on my goal, the priorities and strategies, or 135, that allows me to execute on that plan to fund that portion of my life by design. And that's why the second tool goes to be the GPS and why the 401 is first and so important. Anything else there, Brian, before we go?
Yeah, I'd say there's a couple other things when it comes to the goal setting portion of it. I think there are a couple other things that we left out, and they are typically left out. Meaning, like, I think that real estate agents or people in the real estate industry have left these out of goal setting for years and years and years. And that's actually, I think you'll see in just a second, it actually perpetuates it being forgot again, which is things that aren't that exciting to talk about financially, right? And those are the dues and the debts of the past, right? So do you owe money on a school loan? Okay, well, in 2022, did you set a goal of how much money you would pay off on your school loan, right? In 2023, if you didn't pay it off, then in 2023, do we have a goal that we're setting for that? And not just a goal, but that's one of those things, like Matt, like you were saying, right? The things you want to fund, the things you want to do, the money you want to put in a savings account, the money you want to put in an investment, that's awesome. We got to start with some of the stuff from the past, though. Like, how do we get up to date, right?
Yeah.
So there may be things in the past like child support, alimony, palimony, school loans, credit, like revolving credit card debt, past taxes. Yeah. I don't know. I mean, yeah, it's just you watching something, right? Nobody even knows what you're really watching, right? But just raise your hand. Have you ever owed money on your taxes and not had the money to pay for it? Yep. You're in real estate. Okay, good. It's official. We were both raising our hands in case you didn't notice. And that's because it's a lesson you learn, right? And it's a lesson that you learn in planning, I think, more than people say, oh, it's being diligent with money. It's doing all this other stuff. No, it's planning ahead. It's planning to have a goal that's big enough that you fund that, right? So by the time you get to December, go ahead.
Medical debt, we didn't say.
Yep, medical bills, things like that, right? So any kind of past debt, things that show up on like a credit report, you want to look at that and say, how do I pay these things off, or how do I address this, or how do I fund the, that I need to get rid of some of this past debt, right? And then you're going to look ahead and say, what would it look like in like we'll just talk about taxes, right? In 2023, what would it look like to come up to date with all past due taxes, business, personal, whatever kind of taxes you have? Yes, there are business taxes. Who learn that in a different way too, depending on what state you're living in. You have some interesting ones. And so then, so you come up to date with all those, right? We pay our taxes in 2023. That's for 2022. And by December 31st, all the money that we've made, we already have the money.
Yep.
Like we could pay our tax bill that day.
Yep.
Right. And you figure out what would that take, right? Start there, because that's something that's never going to go away. And until we figure it out, it'll keep you up at night.
Yeah. So you're exactly right. When you said, what's the mistake we see, fundamentally, the mistake we see as an agent says, okay, next year I want to make $100,000. And whether they do or they don't, what they do is they live their life inside of their earnings. So whatever they earn, they go, well, I guess I have this left over so we could do this. I guess we have this left over so we could do that. What we're challenging you with is design your life plan in advance, right? Calculate what that is and think bigger. Because here's the thing, that this is going to sound kind of like woo-saw, like weird, like, oh, okay, manifesting, and it's not. Yet for a second, breathe through this. Whatever arbitrary goal you pick is actually arbitrary. So if you decide next year you're going to make 100,000, you kind of picked that out of nowhere. If you decide 250,000, you picked that up. Now, we could argue about it, and yet since you're not here, it's just going to be me talking to myself and Brian listening. So we're not going to argue about it. We're going to say that you've picked an artificial goal, kind of out of the universe, right? Out of the ether. And you just decided, okay, that's my next step. Yet it's not actually your next step. It's just that you've defined that, and by focusing on it and planning around it, you're probably going to do pretty close to achieving it or right around achieving it. What we're arguing for is define the life that you want and allow yourself just momentarily to do the math, right? Get it on a piece of paper and come up with the number. And yeah, it might be way bigger than what you were initially going to plan for. Then just breathe through it. And by the way, after you're done this exercise, you can argue against it and say, I don't want it. Then just breathe through it and then go to the next tool, which is where we're going now, the GPS, and design what it would take, what would have to happen in your business to be able to fund that. And when you put those two together, what's going to end up happening is you're going to reach a point where you go, okay, here's what I'd have to do to fund my life by design. Now, am I committed to that or not? If the answer is no, I guess you could go back to your original goal. What I think you're going to find is by starting to do that exercise, you're going to say, wait a second, I probably could do that, or let me start working on it, or I have a whole year to get it done. Might as well take a shot. And by doing that, you're going to move forward. So the first tool is, why am I doing that? We gave you the areas to think about. We gave the areas to define. It's really about focusing on the personal side and then doing a math equation and saying, what do I do professionally to fund that number personally once I quantify it and put it together? Now we take that professional side, and each one of your businesses, and if you have one business, it's real estate, that's it, fine, cool. Each one of your businesses or income streams, ideally, you're going to have a one-page business plan, right? And that's called a GPS or 135. It's simply based on one goal, 3 priorities, and 5 strategies. And here's the best way to think about it, okay? If you're an agent, your one goal is profit. If you're a leader, your one goal is profit. Okay, great. Our goal, the purpose of our business is to generate a profit. We're not nonprofits. If you're on this call and you're a nonprofit, if KW Cares is listening, it's a little different for you. You're a 501c3. Your purpose as a charity is to raise money to serve, which ends up being almost like profit.
Very close to profit. Yeah.
Yet if you're a nonprofit, it's about what you raise to serve. If you're a for-profit business, which I am, Brian is, and if you're listening, you probably are, right? Your purpose of business is to generate a profit. The profit funds that life on the 411 that we defined first.
Yep.
So your goal is, how much money does this business generate in profit to fund the life, right? Or the portion, if you have more than one income stream, of my life that I desire to fund, right? So it's profit, then you have 3 priorities. If you're a leader, your priorities are probably something like growth. How many people do I onboard into my company? Productivity, right? What do I do to make sure that my agents increase their production as much as possible? Take 1 listing per agent per month, close 1 unit per agent per month, right? What am I going to do in productivity, right? How many agents am I going to hire? Growth, productivity. And then finally, it's going to be value, or some people would call that also retention. So a GPS for a leader is going to be more like a GPR or a GPV, growth, productivity, value, or growth, productivity, retention. For an agent, it's going to be profit up top as their main goal. And by default, it could be as simple as leads, right? listings leverage, meaning how many people do I need in a database and how am I going to lead generate for it, right? How many listings do I need to take and how am I going to lead generate for it and market it them to be able to leverage them for more business? And then what leverage am I going to take on? So it could really be that simple. Brian, what else would you add with a GPS?
Well, to me, we want to think of these things as like our governing documents, right? These are the documents that tell us who are, to remind us who are we, what do we want, and what do we need to go do, right? So if we think about the organization, I look at the GPS kind of like a blueprint, right? So if you've ever built a house, which I'm building a house, so it's there's a blueprint or like a master blueprint that says these are all the different things, these are all the plans. When we took our time and sat down, this is exactly what was the plan was, right? Now, when somebody comes in to do a task, right, their job is they go to the blueprint and they go, okay, where do the windows go, right? Or where's the electrical wiring going, or what goes where, right? And they're going back to the plan and then taking action. And if it's done correctly, which if you've built a house, it doesn't always go correctly. People either look at the plan or they don't. And the people that don't get to do their job over and over and over again. Like they just keep doing the same work. Versus those that look at the plan, they go, okay, that's right. That's what we're doing here. I'm going to go take action on that. Boom, I'm done. It's just like that, right? So another thing that we will talk about, kind of the errors that people tend to make with these types of tools, right? On the GPS, I think people don't look at it often enough. I don't think people actually look at it and say, like, am I using this as the governing document of my business or the governing document of my organization, such that I just look at it and I go, okay, I know what to go do now. I know what the next best move is, right? It's the same thing with the 411. I mean, there are a lot of resources in our company about 411 and how to formulate your 411 and the function of it and everything else. The thing I want you to be thinking about is how often do you look at it? Right? If that's the governing document of your personal life, is it worth reading it every day? I get it. People love technology. They put it on the computer, right? Do you actually print out a copy of it on a piece of paper? Maybe you're like me, you like pieces of paper sometimes. And one thing you could do simply, like if you're new to the 411 or you go, I do it, but I don't always look at it, or I do it, but I don't always edit it. Great. When you edit it, print it out. You have one sheet of paper. If you want to conserve paper, print it on the other side next week. Okay. Carry that around with you. Carry it everywhere you go. Read it at least every morning and every night. I can read your phone. I don't care how big your 411 is. I can read it in about a minute. Like I can look at it and I go like, okay, got it. These are the most critical things for this week. They're adding up to what I want to do. And then I also say, like, make edits on your 411 that you can edit weekly during a time you have set aside to look at it, and read your GPS daily.
Yeah.
If you're a leader, if you're serious about your business, you would just look at those two documents. You read them first.
Yeah.
Then you're going to look at the things on your schedule. You're going to look at the things you have for that day and say, is this really the most important thing that I do to go hit the goals and go do the things that I have in these documents when I planned it? See, here's the deal. We are salespeople. We're great salespeople, you and I, right? Not just you and Matt and I. I mean, like you, Matt, you're a great salesperson. I'm a great salesperson. Person listening to this is a great salesperson. And who we're really good at negotiating with is ourselves. So if you think you're going to create a plan and then just effortlessly go through it without reminding yourself of the plan, that's the flaw. Yeah. Right? Because you're going to start negotiating in real time and you're good. Right? Yeah. So you go, it's not as important to me today. Okay, well, it was when we took the time to plan.
We know a leader, Brian, that would tape their 411 to their computer. And before they ever turn their computer on in the morning, they would read their 411, then they would flip it over their computer monitor. Then they would turn the computer on and work. And at the end of the day, they would take their 411 and flip it back over the computer monitor, read it again, shut their computer down and leave. Now on their desk in front of them was their GPS. So they had their GPS and their 411. And they looked at it every day, right? guys, we're talking ladies, we're talking about gentlemen, right? People listening. We're talking about the focus growth using 4 core tools. First was why on one. Second was what, GPS, right? Quickly on the GPS, last couple of things, then we'll go to who with the organizational chart, the third tool. Couple last things on GPS. Every strategy, because remember, it's 1 goal, 3 priorities, 5 strategies. Every strategy should be 3 things: measurable, right? Ideally 3 things, okay? Do your very best. Have your coach help you, right? Have your leaders help you. Number 1, measurable. Number 2, timestamp. And number 3, assigned to a person or people. Every strategy should ideally be, right, measurable, meaning it's a number, right, of execute, right? You're going to contact 20 people a day, or you're going to put in 100 people a week, or whatever. Measurable, right? Timestamp, accomplished by what date, right? And assigned to specific people, okay? So that's going to be the 3 things that you want for each one of these tools, all right? Each one of these strategies inside your GPS: measurable, timestamp, and assigned to a certain group of people. So first we talked about why your 411. We really talked about the personal side and then quantifying it to get to the professional side. Then we talked about the 1-page business plan, which is what, and your GPS. Now we're going to talk about the third tool, which is who, your organizational chart. Now, from the real estate side, if you have a level 7 team, right, and our teams continue to get bigger, or from a market center side, if you're a 3, 4, 5, 600 person market center, you're used to using your organizational chart very often, right? Because of the fact that you're constantly identifying the tasks that you have, the resources that you have to be able to execute on the task, and the people, right? What the job descriptions and task descriptions of people are, right? And how they're able to move forward. And Brian's going to talk a little bit about a tool that Gary gave us to reset that when the market changes in a minute. What we're going to challenge you with is every single one of us has an organizational chart, even if you're a solo agent listening to this. Yep, you have an organizational chart. And even if you think you don't, you actually do, because you have leaders in your market center. They're part of your organizational chart. They're there to serve you, help you, answer questions. Every single transaction when you execute, you have to have a loan officer. You have to have title or escrow. You have to have an insurance company. So there are people that serve the transaction and the client along with you, right? No matter where you are on every transaction, they are part of the organization that serves your clients, that serves your customers as a real estate professional. So we all in our industry have an organizational chart. The first thing is, do you see it that way? The second thing is, how intentional are you in choosing and selecting those people so that they deliver service and an experience that you desire to deliver yourself, right? The third thing is, okay, once your business starts to grow, Gary teaches us the MREA. When we're doing all we can do, we hire administrative help, right? Today is different. 2022, and you're watching this, it might be 2023 by the time you turn this on, right? We are in a different world, meaning that today, Brian and I both have virtual assistants. And yet when we were a team leader, right, both of us, that wasn't an option at the same level of prevalence and accessibility as it is today. So for you, you could have a virtual assistant before you have an executive assistant, which he and I have both had as well, right? We've been privileged to have so many people work in partnership with us to serve people. Well, the cool thing about a virtual assistant is it's lowered the cost, right, so to speak, of getting into leverage, right, for sure. And it's increased your ability to leverage faster and more tasks, right, on a daily basis. So one of the things we challenge you with is the organizational chart in the MREA is there. The updated version in MREA 2, which is going to come out in the near future, is taught in MAPS models. It's taught in courses like career visioning. It's taught in so many different places across our company. It's accessible to you to look at. Where we'd have you kind of think about in your organizational chart is, if you're a solo agent, you do have a group of people that works with you no matter what. Brian's going to talk about more of the number of steps in a transaction and a way to reset that in a second. And the second thing we challenge you with is, when you think about doing all you can do, hire administrative help, we can do that sooner than we could ever do in the past because of virtual assistants. So kind of 2 things I'd have you talk about. And Brian, how do you get people to think about that a little bit more with kind of some steps to take that Gary's defined, right, as well as the steps in every transaction to kind of think about?
Yeah, I think it starts with this. I'm gonna read this out of the Shift book. This is Shift by Gary Keller. It starts on page 39 under people. And when he talks about the organization, this is what I hear him saying. He says, people begins with you. So before you look at others, take an honest look at yourself. Are you maximizing your own productivity? Are you doing what matters most? Are you doing what you get paid to do? As we say in Tactic 1, the role you play in your business is critical now more than ever. Once you're clear about how your personal efforts are getting more of the important things done cost effectively, the focus shifts to others in your business. That part's important, right? That part's important because when we see a shifting market, we want to look at, okay, are we doing the most important things? Are we getting the most important things done cost effectively? He does not say, do you get everything done? He does not say that. He says, are you getting the most important things done cost effectively? That's important. When we look at
yeah. Brian, I gotta jump in just to say we could say the most dollar productive things done. Yeah. Are we getting the dollar productive things done? Go ahead.
And he does. I mean, he does break that down. He says, like in a real estate business, there are the things that are creating income and those that aren't. And during a shifting market, the most important things are the dollar productive activity. Yeah, that's right. There's a tool that maybe you've seen it. It's in, if you look on kellerinc.com, it's under MREA under tools. There's a list and it says, or it's a spreadsheet. It says 192 tasks that megas do, right? What it's really saying is like, it's 192 tasks that every real estate agent does. And leverage really just means you're not going to do 192 tasks every time. That's it. That's the simple part, right? And many of you say like, well, that's just my real estate business. I also have this other business. And I also have, all the things I want to do at my house and all the things I want. Okay, great. Then you have more than 192 tasks. The way I look at the org chart is saying like, okay, how many of those do you do now? And who does the other ones? And in a shifting market, we have to look at and say, which of these are the most essential things that we get done? And what tasks are we going to be focused on moving forward? Right? So what that's going to take is clarity of working with people. Beyond that, if you're working with people, right, if you're leading even one other person, the next part of what I'm going to tell you, I believe will be very important. It's on page 42 and 43 of the Shift book. It's in Shift Tactic 3. It has to do with leverage. And Gary's talking about the 7 steps to a talent shift. I'm going to go through them just really brief right now because it's important to think about how we lead this organization to go, accomplish the things that are on our GPS, so that allows us to do what we want to do personally and professionally, such that we make the money that we can go fund the things that we want personally, or the things we want to do personally, or the things we want to provide personally, right? So 7 steps to a talent shift. First thing you're going to do is sit down with your people and share your vision for your business. It means you need a vision for your business. Okay. That's probably where the personal goals came into a GPS. Like along that process, you're probably getting clarity of your vision, right? What are we about? What are we going to do? Tell them the truth about the situation, where we are today and where you see it going. That's real clear, right? That's like, we're going to be honest. We're going to have an honest conversation and say, the way things were in the past are not the way they are now. Here's where we're going. I'd love for y'all to come with me, right? Here's what that's going to look like. Number 2 says, visit with each person to see if they're with you and willing to do whatever it takes. So wait, we meet in a group and then we meet one-on-one with people. We're checking, right? Hey, we had this meeting. We talked about what the vision was, talked about where we're going, what's going to happen. Just where are you at with that? Where do you see yourself involved in that? Number 3, we realign job descriptions, and we consider moving from job descriptions to task descriptions. It gives us some fluidity to be able to move between, not having to let somebody go or give them a different title to have them do a different job. And Gary says, seek flexibility in this. Number 4, we're going to set easy to measure goals, standards, and activities. Goals, standards, and activities. We're going to be positive. We're going to clearly communicate. Here's the part that's hard for people to swallow. Then expect results or resignations. You'll accept either. This is real stuff right here. I mean, this is saying like, this is, in order for us to go do the things we want to do as an organization, these are the people in my organization, right? And here's what I need each person in the organization to go do and accomplish. And if they don't, we should both have clarity that it's not happening. Number 5, establish a simple training calendar. We're going to cross train people and make sure that we're not only building competence, but confidence and setting positive expectations. Number 6, we're going to meet weekly with each individual. Okay, there we go. We're going to meet weekly with each individual. We're going to visit with them. We're going to see if there's any corrective action that needs to take place. Are they on track to hit their own goals? Are they fulfilling the standards we have in place or not? We're going to touch base regularly to see what's going on. We're going to inspect what we expect. Number 7, we're going to celebrate the small victories along the way. So if you're looking at a yearly thing with a GPS, it shouldn't, if we just have one conversation about what's the goal on the GPS, then here's our standard, and then we just let it go. Right. And then somewhere in October, we wake up and go, wait, we got the wrong people. They're not doing anything, and we're not going to hit our goals. Well, then that was poor leadership. Effective leadership is, we're going to have the conversation now when we're setting it, and then we're going to have it at least weekly with each person to take corrective action and make that happen. And we're also going to be celebrating the victories along the way. So again, we're talking about 4 core tools. What we're really giving you is a formula here of how to not only plan your year, but to successfully lead yourself and others through it. Anything you would add to that, Matt?
Yeah, we've talked through the why, which is 411. We've talked through the what, which is GPS. We've talked through, right now we're talking through and finishing, and I love what you've shared on the who, which is the organizational chart. The challenge I'd give you to listen to this call on the who is, this conversation on organizational chart briefly has really been about your professional world. And the only thing we've left out is, many people wear this kind of badge of honor, so to speak. I don't know how to describe it, of like, they mow their own lawn and they cook their own food and they do their own dishes and they hang their own things and they do their own work around their house and they do their own landscaping, they do their own, right? And there's other people that say, like, I have to do all those things. There's no way for me to not do those things, right? If I don't do those things, everything in my life will fall apart, and I can't leverage everything. And, choice is an interesting thing. We're always making choices. And so what I challenge you with is there somewhere in your personal life you can bring someone into your organizational chart? Is there somewhere in your personal life you desire to bring someone in your organizational chart, right? And what could that change for you? What could it add for you? How could that change your dollar productive activity? More importantly, how could that change the time that you spend with your kids, with your family, with your spouse, with your significant other, traveling, right? And reduce your stress because somebody with a higher level of expertise is executing on something. It doesn't mean that the pride you take from working on your own house or doing things with your own family or working with your own family, right? There's anything wrong with that. It means consider the choices you're making with your time. And if you ever find yourself in victim mentality or complaining about the time you have to spend doing certain things, instead of spending time traveling with your family or executing more in work so you have greater resources, that's a place to clue in and go, wait a second, at home, I might be missing a person. Yep. In my personal life, I might be missing a person, right? Or a tool or a resource or technology that could serve me as well. So just we think about who, it's not just professional who, right? It's your personal who. And the reality is every one of us has a personal organizational chart without a doubt, if you at the very least don't have a professional one already in your business. And so it's another consideration for 2023. Who could you add to your personal organizational chart, and how will that change your time, your life, right? Your travel, your stress. So last tool, right? We did why, we did what, we did who, right? 411 GPS org chart. Let's do how. How do we develop the skills necessary to achieve what we want? And that's a growth plan. And the reason why this is a how is the reality is if you already had all the skills that you needed to achieve at a higher level, then you would be achieving at a higher level, and you'd have, right, the people that you needed as well as the right execution that you needed, and you'd be executing on what you want personally. You knew all the things you needed to know and had all the skills you needed to have, then you'd already have the things you desire that you don't have yet. And what's in between where you are and where you desire to go is your personal development, how you'll change to change your results in your world. That's a growth plan, right? If I'm honest with myself and I'm humble enough to be able to look at the world and say, what is it that other people know that I need to know? What is it that other people can do that I need to be and know how to do so that I can execute on a higher level? So A growth plan is very simple. You could literally do it on a piece of paper. We have simple tools in Keller Williams, right? They're all over the place, yet it's very simple. And the simplicity of a growth plan is this, right? It's right by month. What are you going to do in training? What are you going to do in reading? What are you going to do? Who are you going to interview, right? Who are you going to meet with? Who are you going to shadow, right? That's going to allow you to develop in a certain skill set or area. So as a team leader, for example, there are things I studied all the time, certain categories. I studied sales, I studied recruiting, I studied consulting, I studied coaching, I studied leadership. In 2015 and 2016, Gary Keller came out and said, we're a technology company. I said, uh-oh, I'm not a technology-based leader yet. I better start studying technology, right? I became a coach just like you did, Brian, in 2015. And I went, wow, I need to start studying coaching, right? In 2020, some very tragic events happened in our world, and it made me clear that I needed to study unconscious bias, right? Diversity, equity, inclusion, and become a better leader and a better coach. The world will often inform our growth plan. Our business will often inform our growth plan, and our goals most often inform our growth and our action plan. Yet it's nothing more complicated by what's the month, what are I desire to learn, or what's the categories that I want to focus on, training, people I want to interview, places I want to go, so that I'm a different person in the future and therefore can execute it on a different level. What else would you add to a growth plan, Brian?
I think you did a great job of talking about it. I think typically what I see in people's growth plans is a lot of training and books, things like that, or maybe even events beyond that. I think that the place that a lot of people have opportunity is in the who of your growth plan. Like you talked about, who could I go interview? I would say, who can I interview? Who can I study? And who can I partner with? Meaning, like, if you want to get better at a skill, who are you studying that already does that skill, right? If there's a specific thing you're working on, who is the person that you could reach out to? Like, who have you asked for help, right? You may have one conversation, they'll give you 5 more things to put in your growth plan because they're going like, hey, if you really want to dig deep on this, go do these things. I mean, people reach out to Matt and I, they want to talk about leadership of their organization or something, and we typically are going to say like, great, go read this book, or here's another thing to do, or here's another thing to consider, because that's what's going to have that individual go grow to go lead the organization, the people of the organization, and then go do the things they want on their GPS to ultimately hit the goals in their 4-on-1. But again, are you interviewing people? Are you being proactive in asking for help of people that have been there before you? So I think that's our biggest opportunity.
Yeah, the last thing I need to share is, and Gary shared this with us, and it's and we've seen other high performers say something similar. What Gary said very simply is, if the goals that you set don't require you to change to achieve them, they're too small.
Yep.
Right. Other people have said, if it doesn't challenge you, it doesn't change you. The reality is that we've also heard that the goal informs the action plan. And I think in all of this, what happens a lot of times, Brian, and where we kind of want to end this conversation for all of you to hear it this way, is something that I share with my clients in the last email that I sent them for this year, right? Which was this: stop playing small, stop thinking small. The world has already defined, unfortunately, a lot of the world has defined 2023 as being a challenging year, a pivotal year, right? Some people have said it's going to be a down year. And what drives me insane as a coach and as a human being that's lived a bigger life by focusing on core tools and execution and surrounding myself with positive people is, we haven't even started the year yet. So we have no idea, right? Yet we're listening to prognosticators and newscasters and media, and social media saying, well, it has to be these things. The question for you is, are you going to allow people to define your life, or are you going to define it yourself? Are you going to have other people say, this is what's going to happen in your future, or are you going to choose your own future? It's not some fairy tale concept. It's what we just went through is the design of your future. It's that your goal informs your action plan. When you set small goals, you'll have small actions and you'll live a small life. What so many people are afraid to do, Brian, that they tell us all the time is, well, if I put it out into the universe, or if I write it down on a piece of paper, then I'll have to do it. Here's the reality. No, you don't. What'll
Yeah.
happen is you'll just allow yourself the ability to think about how you could do it. And what's so important about that is by allowing yourself the ability to consider how it could be done, you'll surprise yourself. And a lot of times you'll say, wait a second, I could do that. Or I may not be able to figure out how to do that. I mean, I can figure out something much larger than what I was going to do just by taking an attempt at it. All of these tools are not about perfection. They're about the progress that happens when you plan, right? Why am I doing it? Personal goals, then I fund it professionally in a 401. What do I need to do? Simple one-page business plan. Here's what I'm going to do. Like Brian said, put it in front of you, your personal goals every day. Study just came out again yesterday. It was released, a international psychological study that said that you're 42% more likely to achieve a goal when it's written down. Simple stuff, right? So 401 personal goals, GPS, right? One-page plan to be able to achieve them and fund that, right? The organizational chart is the who. Who's going to help me do these things? Who is going to work with me to be able to get this done? And then finally, right, if we're humble and we can look in a mirror and say, you know, there's some pieces I might be missing or things I don't know, since 99.99% of things in the world are things we don't know that we don't know. There's a lot for us to learn, no matter how much we've ever learned. Where am I going to grow? What areas am I going to move forward? Yet what we cannot do is predetermine that things are going to be terrible, fail, be tough. We're not going to work for ourselves, especially when the game hasn't even started yet. So stop thinking small, stop playing small, give yourself the grace, even if it's in a room by yourself in a quiet place, to write out some tools, to write out the big goals, the things you think might take 3 years or 5 years or 7 years or 10 years. Write them down for 2023 and play a game, experiment with yourself. How could I do that? What would it take? What would I have to change? How would I need to grow? Who would I need to surround myself with? I think you'll shock yourself because of how powerful you actually are if you just allow yourself to do that and stop listening to the negative opinion of other people and playing small.
Yeah, I think it's about thinking big in such a way that it causes your brain to do something different, right? I mean, the people that are predicting something about next year, it's all hinged on nothing changing within them, and they're predicting something about the market. The good news is most of the predictions are usually wrong. So if you don't like it, then you can just say, "Well, most of them are wrong." Cool, great. Even if the prediction about the market is right, that doesn't mean anything about you, right? And Matt, I'm willing to share on here, like you and I have each had income goals, right? That it wasn't the first year I started thinking about it that I hit it. Yet the first year I started thinking about it, I started making more. And it wasn't coincidence. It was because I actually spent time every day, every week, every month figuring out how could I earn X number of dollars, right? Over and over and over again. And each year was making more money, and then hit the goal. So just because you think something, just because you put something out in the universe, just because you think about it every day and you don't hit it, does that mean you're a failure? No, because you're likely succeeding at a much higher level than those that never ask themselves that question, or if you were never to ask yourself that question. And if you do it long enough, you will find the answer, you will find the solution, and time will be in your favor, that you'll actually go do something huge. So thank you for spending time with us and watching this recording. Last thing here is Matt and I run a 90-day intensive for people that are focused on thinking big and hitting their goals. And it's called TL 306090, just like it says on Matt's shirt. You can go to TL306090.com. Our next launch is in January 9th. If you're interested, or if you have somebody that's interested in that, feel free to look at that and get registered. We're looking for the next great group. We had 197 people go through it this year. And some major things have happened, so we're excited about the next round of that.
Thanks so much for spending so much time listening to Brian and I go through these 4 core tools to allow you to focus on growth. Give yourself the opportunity to take a shot at these tools, use them as living documents that you'll work on, that you'll edit, that you'll change. You're going to accomplish some stuff faster than you think. When you cross something out, right, the year's not over, your life's not over. You're still make changes, add new things, edit it, right? Ask for help from leaders, from coaches. We're all here to help you do those things. And just don't play a small game in 2023. There's a lot of people saying certain things, right? Decide that you're going to live a different year, right? A bigger year, right? Under your own terms, and use some of these tools to be able to do it. We appreciate you. Happy holidays. And if we can help you, please let us know.